Hi, everyone. I'm Ann Churchland.
I'm Alex Huck.
We're here today to do science updates with Ann and Alex. So, Alex, what do you think? Has this been a pretty calm and serene time in the world of funding for biological and medical research?
No.
Not so much. So since the Trump administration got started, they first had some major cuts to all of the DEI initiatives that were meant to support groups historically excluded from science. And then they announced a major cut to the indirect costs, which are the costs that come with grants that are used to pay for things like environmental hazard waste removal and keeping the lights on in the building. So many universities in many states got together and tried to push back against that cut to indirect cost at the judicial level, and they were successful. And following that, the Trump administration decided to stop posting study sections to the Federal Register. So Alex is going to tell us what that means and why that matters for NIH funding.
Yeah, so every grant that's submitted typically gets reviewed by a study section that is overseen by the National Institutes of Health. And it turns out that something we take for granted is the posting of an announcement of that study section meeting in something called the Federal Register. So you can find this at federalregister.gov. And in essence, the National Institutes of Health have stopped posting announcements of impending study sections and their schedules. According to a very helpful read at The Transmitter, an article written by Angie Voiles Ashcam, I want to give her credit for this. It's expected that study sections are announced 15 days before they meet, at least in the Federal Register. There have been, as far as I can tell, no posts regarding new study sections since January 20th or 21st of this year. And so that means that many of the usual February and March cycle study sections should not be able to meet according to those terms. The transmitter article states that there's a 15-day advance notice that needs to be respected. I couldn't actually find that in the corresponding documents that were linked, but an expert might be able to refine that. It's also pretty clear that the Federal Register in general is working and that this administration knows how to post to it. For example, on February 20th, there are many notices that have been posted. Everything from Frida Kahlo's Month in Paris, a Friendship with Mary Reynolds exhibition, to a notice regarding highly pathogenic avian influenza and the need for additional testing and reporting in livestock and milk. So this does seem to be a somewhat selective deficit in posts to the Federal Register.
Oof, this is a big problem. And so if you had a grant that you spent months and months working on that was supposed to be reviewed in February, you might be realistically very concerned that that's not going to happen. Is that right?
Yeah, I think there's some degree of uncertainty about how flexible the advance notice can be, how nimbly the study sections can be rescheduled, and how much of the existing membership can be maintained. And it's also not completely clear whether the BRAIN initiative, which is something really important to a lot of neuroscientists, that is partially funded by the NIH, whether those study sections also need to respect this Federal Register posting rule. Definitely appreciate any input from experts on that matter, as it could be a real point of clarification.
Yeah, please leave questions and additional information in the comments if you have any, and then we'll bring it up at our next posting. Okay, a couple other things that are happening today. Multiple universities have announced at this point that they are having changes in their plans to hire new faculty and also in their plans to bring in new graduate students. There's a lot of posts all over social media of really young scientists hoping to get admitted to a graduate program to get their PhD in biochemistry or neuroscience, or, all kinds of biological fields, and they have learned recently that their programs have been cut and are not admitting students at all this year. One example of that is University of Pennsylvania, so not like a university that typically would worry about being able to fund graduate students. There are related freezes in hiring new faculty. So this is, again, just devastating for the new generation of scientists who were poised to start their own laboratories this year and are now facing hiring freezes at a lot of universities. super upsetting news on that front. And
Yeah, I'll just add that this is not the usual sort of disconnect that occurs when a new president is elected.
that's right. This is totally unprecedented, and it's really devastating for, especially for the youngest investigators, young scientists in the United States who are really hoping to pursue their careers. And finally, we'll give one last update for today, and that is that a really important policy appears to have been archived by the NIH, and that's including what people call SABV, that stands for sex as a biological variable. And what that means is that whatever you're studying, maybe you're studying fear responses in the brain, maybe you're studying cardiology, the idea is that you need to include both male and female subjects, because for a lot of brain processes and physiological properties generally, males and females are just different. So, for example, the work of Becca Shansky, who's been a real leader in this area, has shown that male and female mice have very different responses to fearful stimuli. So if you only study one sex, only males typically, then you don't really learn the full spectrum of what's going on. Also, a lot of drugs respond differently to male and female bodies and brains, and that's because we have different physiology. So including sex as a biological variable is a really important and scholarly thing to do that a lot of folks have put considerable effort into it. And so seeing this policy apparently archived is pretty mysterious. There's a great article, again, in the Transmitter, which has been amazing, by Claudia Lopez Larreta, and we'll link that in the chat, talking about this important issue. So we'll be back again soon and give you more updates. This is a really dynamic time, really unsettling time, but let's not give up hope. Let's try to share information as much as we can and try to keep moving forward with our science as best we can during these really unprecedented times. Thanks, everyone. See you later.
Take care.